Now that we've got our data being added to our form field whenever we either create a new store or update one, let's add the ability to upload a photo every single time that we have. So this is sort of going to be a three-stage process. First, we need to modify our form to accept file uploads. Second, we need to add some middleware in between. If we open up our store controller, we have create store. So before we even create the store, we need to add some logic to both upload the file as well as resize the file. So we're going to be using some external middleware packages called Multer, which is going to allow us to upload the file. And we're going to be using something called GIMP, which will help us resize a file. So we've got this exports.create store here. But before we even do that, we need to upload the file. So let's open up our store form. And we will change the encoding type of our form to multi-part /form -data. And what this allows us to do is anytime you're uploading files to a server, you need to make sure that the browser will send it as a multi-part. So we say enc type equals multi-part /form -data. And earlier we did that, we added it and nothing actually got sent through and we had to delete it. And that's because we had not set up Express to handle multi-parted form data just yet. So now that it is changed, we need to use a package called Multer to actually handle all of those fields that are being passed to us. So let's go over to our store controller here and we will say const multer equals require multer. Then we need some options as to what to happen with multer before we even make our middleware route. So we'll say const multer options equals, and that's going to be an object. Now, there's two things here that we need. We need to say where will the file be stored when it's uploaded, and second, what types of files are allowed. Because what's going to happen is multer is going to handle the upload request. And we need to tell it, this is where you put the photo, and this is only the types of files that you should possibly require. So first we say storage, and there's a whole bunch of different storage options with Multer. You can save it to disk, or in our case, we're going to save it just right into memory. And the reason is because we don't actually want to keep the original uploaded file. We want to just read it into memory, and then we're going to resize it and then save the resized version to file. So if somebody uploads a really big file, we're not going to be running out of disk space. In some situations, you might want to save the original as well as the resized version. But for now, we're just going to read it right into memory. So we're going to say multer.memory storage, and that will give us the values that we need. And then we say file filter, and file filter is going to be a function that gives us a request, a file, and a next value, or a callback value, as the docs say. So we'll use next because we've been using that as we go along. Now, what you can do is you can use the shorthand ES6 method syntax. Because file filter is just a function, you can delete the function and the colon and just do it like that. So we have a file filter, we get the request, we get the file, and we get next. And from this, what we need to do is either say, yes, this file is fine, continue it on, or no, this file type isn't allowed. So we'll say const is photo, and we will check that the file.mime type. So a file's mime type essentially will tell you what type of photo it is. So it's going to be image /PNG, image /JPEG. Every file in the history of computers has its own MIME type to describe what type it is, because you can't rely on the extension of the file to actually be true, because someone could easily take like virus.exe and rename it to be image.jpg. But you can rely on the MIME type of the file that's coming in. So we'll check that the MIME type starts with image /, or in that case, we could check for image /JPEG or PNG or GIF, or we're accepting any type of image that comes in here. So we're just going to say starts with, and then we say if is photo, then we'll just call next, and we'll say null and true. And now we haven't been really working with callback based stuff because we've been using async await for promises, but you will often see this sort of callback premise in node where if you call next and you pass it something as the first value, that means it's an error. If you call next and you pass it null in the second value, that means it worked, and the second value that you're passing it is what needs to get passed along. So in our case, we're just saying, yeah, it's fine. It starts with image, continue on, continue with the file uploading. Otherwise, we're going to say else. We'll say next, and we will pass it an object with a message that says that file type isn't allowed. And we need to either use backticks or escape that there. And then we'll say false because it wasn't allowed. So that's the Multer options that we have there. Again, we're going to read the photo into storage, and then we're going to also check that this is a allowed type of file to be uploaded, because we don't want people uploading PDFs or MP4 or anything like that. Good. Next, we need to make our middleware for actually working with our Create Store. So maybe just before Create Store, it doesn't matter where you do this, but we say exports dot upload equals upload Multer, and we'll pass it the Multer options. And then we'll say we are looking for a single field. So you can have multiple fields that Multer will handle, but essentially what we're going to say here is just like we just want a single field that's called a photo. Now, we've done that. Let's go to our store form and modify our store form to take a photo. So we'll go in description, address, lat long, maybe before the address we'll do it. Let's say image upload. Say label for photo, and then we'll have an input. Put the input inside of it with a type of file, a name of photo, ID of photo. And we can also tell it to some client-side validation as well, where you say accept equals image / GIF, image / PNG, image / JPEG with an E. So that's obviously somebody could go ahead and remove that with DevTools, and that's why we did that server-side validation with Multer. But this will just be nice if somebody uploads like a PDF for whatever reason, they don't have to go and submit it and find out it didn't work. They'll know immediately, or they won't even be able to select that value from there. Then we'll say, still inside of this, we'll say if there is a store.photo, we'll just give ourselves an image tag, which links out to where the image will be. So /uploads / store.photo. We'll give it an alt of, we could say store.name, which will say the store name, and then give it a width of 200. Whew. All right. Now that we have our upload middleware all coded up, and we also have this photo showing up, you can click on choose file, and if you go to your public images photos, you're going to see that I've shipped this project with a bunch of very fancy photos, and a lot of them are fairly large. We want to have them resized down before we actually use them. So let's cancel that and go back to our store controller here. We're going to build a second piece of middleware, because the first one, upload, reads it into memory. So what that means is that it actually doesn't save the file to disk, but it just stores it in the memory of your server. And that's just temporary, because right away we're going to resize it and then save it to our actual folder. So let's go up to the top here. We are going to import a package called GIMP, which will allow us to resize our photos. So we'll say const GIMP equals require GIMP. And then we also need something that's going to allow us to make the file names unique, because if somebody uploads dog.jpg and then somebody else comes along and uploads dog.jpg a week later, they shouldn't overwrite each other. And I don't feel like writing the logic to say dog2, dog3, dog4. So we will use a package called UUID, which is a unique identifier package. So we'll say const UUID equals require UUID, and that will just give us unique identifiers for every single image that gets uploaded. Good. So we'll go down right below our upload. We will now make our resize function. Exports.resize equals, and it's going to be an async function that has a request, a response, and a next. And the reason why we pass next there is because this is a middleware. We're not going to be doing any rendering or sending back to the client. We are just going to be saving the image, recording what the file name is, and then passing it along to create store. So it's going to go upload, resize, create store. Go. Then first thing we need to do is not every single time that we edit our store are we uploading a new file. And if that is the case, Malter is not going to pass us anything. So we just need to check if there is no new file to resize. If there is no request.file, and it's request.file because Malter will put the actual file onto the file property of the request. That's the whole point of middleware, is somebody that came before you makes and preps some data right for you. So if there is no request, we are simply going to call next, which will skip to the next middleware. Remember how we have upload. Upload will finish and call next for us. Then we have resize. We're going to resize the photo and call next. And then we're going to create the store. But if there is no file to upload, we're just going to call next immediately, which is going to skip down to create store, or it's going to help us to update the store. Good. So we have next, and then we're going to return. Obviously, that will stop this function from running any further. Let's just console.log the actual request.file and just see what we're working with. So give that a save. Open up your terminal here. And oh no, I did something wrong. Async equals, you gotta know how to code JavaScript. There we go. Now, before we go any further, let's just actually get some data showing. I don't like to write too much code without actually seeing that it's working along the way. So let's console log request.file, and we will first hook up both of these middlewares, and then we'll look at our console to see if the console.log is actually working. So go back to your index.js, and this page here, add store, is when we submit it, it's post/add. Now, our only function, our only controller function here is just create store. But like I said, we need to first run Malter, which is upload, and then we need to run resize, and then we need to run create store. So let's take a look here. What I like to do is put these on their own line just because it starts to get a little bit hairy. So we have store controller dot upload, store controller dot resize, and then store controller dot create store, and we'll have to wrap resize because it's an async function. Wrap that sucker in a catch error. Now, see how this is getting kind of hairy? We'll put these on their own line just so we can easily read it. So first it's upload, then it's resize, then it's create store, and then this route is really, really easy to read because you say /add, upload, resize, create store. Good. So give that a save. Go back to your store here, refresh the add page, open up your terminal, clear that out, and we're going to try to add a store ourselves. So I'm going to say mulberry coffee. It's coffee. I'm going to try and add one of the photos that we have here. That one looks good. And I'm going to add in Hamilton, just some Latin long, and then give it some values and click on save. Whoa! Okay, see what happened there. We just console logged, go back to your controller. We just console logged request.file. And what do we have here? Request.file is field name was photo, because that's the field name that came from our form. The original name was 1.jpg. That's what I uploaded right here. The encoding type, the MIME type, we talked about that earlier. And then this is what's really important here, the buffer. And what is the buffer? Well, I told you earlier that we're not actually saving this file to any hard drive. We're actually just reading it into memory. And buffer is just a representation of that file in memory. And then we didn't do anything after console log. So here, if I bring this down, you see how it's just spinning forever. That's because we haven't actually done anything with the response. And this will eventually tell us that there's been a timeout on our server because we haven't responded to it in any way. So that's good. We have this request.file. And what we need to pull from that file here is we need the extension, which is JPEG. Again, don't rely on the user's uploaded extension because they might goof it up. We want to rely on the MIME type that the server has inferred for us. So we'll say const file type, or maybe const extension is equal to request.file.mimetype.split on the /, right? Because we have this. And if you have that image /JPEG and you split it on the /, you get an array of two pieces. And then we want the second piece, which is going to be the extension. So we'll say split, And we want the second piece, which is 1. Good. Then we want to set it up so that create store is going to have the info for when it actually stores. So we say request.photo, right? We're just going to pass it along to the next one that can pull that off of the request. Oh no, request.body.photo, because remember we save a store with request.body, and if we put the photo on the body, then it's going to get stored into our database. And that's going to be equal to some backticks. We need a unique identifier for that. So we'll say uuid.v4, and that will generate a unique string, which will make sure that we don't have file names that are overlapping each other. And then we want a dot, and you put the extension on there. So that's going to be something like h99499 whatever .jpeg, and that's going to be the name of our actual photo. Now we actually have to do the resizing. Now we resize. So we'll say const photo equals await gimp.read. Now gimp.read, you have to either pass it a file path that's on your server, or you pass it a buffer, which is, again, our photo is currently in memory just for a few seconds before we actually read it and resize it. So your request.file.buffer. Remember, let's go back here. Request.file.buffer. These FFD800, that means delicious salami, some fish, jam on a wooden board. That's what that means in the buffer. Good. So we have it. And because GIMP is a package that is based on promises, we can just await the actual result and put it into photo. Good. Now we can await photo.resize. We want to resize it to 800 pixels by, and we want to say like auto. So width is 800 and the height is going to be auto. So the way that you can reference auto is you say gimp.auto, and this is all in the GIMP documentation if you need to pull that up. So we resized it, and now we write it to our actual folder. So I'll say await photo.write, again, because all this stuff is asynchronous. We need to wait until they are done before we go ahead. Write, and it's going to be in public /uploads / and we're going to say the photo name, which is request.body.photo. Woo! Then finally, when we're done, once we have written the photo to our file system, keep going. Right? Because the whole point of this resize function is to resize it, to save it to disk, and then just to save reference to what the photo is called, so that the next step, create store, will just store up that path to the photo that's on our actual hard drive. So we'll say next. Good. So that will skip it. That's the next middleware that we have here. You notice how I saved it now. This page broke because it was finally up and running. Just give it a refresh. Now let's try and add something. So say Wes. We'll go, actually, let me open up my uploads folder just so we can see it come in hot. So uploads, I'm going to sort by date modified, just so that when I actually do upload some file, it will be popped right in there. Okay, so we have Wes. Our description is going to be great coffee. We're going to try and upload a photo for our first one. Let's pick this one of oysters. Maybe we'll call it Oyster Shack. Then our oyster, maybe Oyster Bay, United States. We got our Latin, our long. We'll get some tags. Now we're going to click save. And oh no, we broke it. Cannot read property split of undefined. That happened in store controller on line 35. We'll go to our store controller, line 35. Request.file.mim type. You're probably screaming at me for the last 10 minutes. Mime type. There we go. Let's try it again. I can just refresh that page and it should repost all that data that we had. So continue. You must supply an address. No, it didn't work. So we'll try it once more. Oyster Shack. Great. Try upload the photo of the oyster. That's it. Oyster Bay. Give it some tags. Give it a save. There we go. Successfully created Oyster Shack. Now, if I go back to my Finder here, today at 3:32 p.m., that's what time it is right now. If I open that sucker up, ooh, 800 pixels by auto. So it's been refreshed. Now, if I go back to my homepage here, you'll see Oyster Shack, but we still have this photo here that it actually isn't working. So let's maybe take a look at our edit screen here. Let's go back to our store form. We'll just do a quick dump of what we have. Pre equals h.dump store. Let's see what data we're working with. So Oyster Shack has ID, slug, name, description, location, tags created. Oh, you tell me, why didn't it actually work? It saved the photo, but why didn't it save it to the database? Because our schema is not set up to actually handle that, right? We have name, slug, description, tags created, location. We don't have image yet, or photo. So we'll just say photo is going to be equal to a string. Now let's try upload a photo once more. Again, we can't update it just yet because we haven't set the middleware for updating one just yet. So we have to add a new one. We'll call this one. Let's see what one of these fun photos. Donut monster. Yum. We upload a photo. We'll say donuts. With the difference. Cool. Family friendly. Then we save it. Bam. Created donut monster. Can we go here? We see a donut. Sure do. Now if we go to homepage, you see that the donut photo is actually being pulled in. Why? Because we added it to our schema. Before we were passing it a photo property, but we didn't have it in our schema. So our schema is like, I don't know what this photo is. I'm not going to do anything with it because we have a strict schema. So that is uploading a photo. The last thing we want to do is be able to edit some of these existing ones. So we'll go back to our routes here, and we'll do the same thing for our update route, which is add/ID. Put that on its own line. And we'll simply just take this upload and resize and put them alongside catch errors update store. So let's see here. Now we'll go to brew bar. We will try to edit one of these. Let's find something good. Yeah, that looks good. Burgers and brews. Upload the file. Give it a save. We've successfully updated it. Did it make it into our folder? There it is. We go to our home page. You see brew bar now has a picture of those burgers being pushed in. Great. So I really hope that solidifies the idea of middleware is rather than, I often see people just like dump all their logic into one controller method. When the reality is that uploading and resizing could really be done on any route. And if you need to upload something, if you need to resize something, no problem. You just pop a middleware in there, and then your final route is one that is actually going to take care of storing it in the database.